We all remember the surge of young immigrants into the U.S. this past summer. Tens of thousands fleeing Central America and crossing into the U.S., many unaccompanied minors, others accompanied by a guardian, usually their mom. Well, that distinction is apparently having a huge impact on how they are treated by the U.S. government. Nick Valencia joining me now. So, Nick, the so-called family units, those traveling with a guardian, some have criticized them being treated very harshly. What has come from that?
Yeah, if you ask the federal government, they say that they're not treated any differently from everyone else, that they aren't treated harshly. But if you talk to these immigrant rights groups, human rights advocates, they say it's unnecessary. They say these conditions are prison-like conditions. And they also say that a majority of those that are in these immigrant family detention centers qualify for asylum. That's why they're here. Earlier, I caught up with Victor Nieblas, who is part of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and he voiced to me exactly what his opposition is to these facilities.
That's just morally wrong. It's the wrong side of history. When I see these pictures of Dili, of Carnes, many people say it reminds us of the Japanese internment camps that we had in our history. Certainly, we don't want to repeat that. We're glad that Artesia in New Mexico was closed, but now we need to do the same with Carnes and Dili, and we're going to continue our efforts to help these individuals because certainly now with this larger space, there's going to be more families. It's going to be more difficult to provide representation for all these families.
So those cities that he was talking about, or at least 3 facilities that the U.S. government has right now, privately contracted, and they also cost a lot of money, about $260 million to the taxpayer, about $200 per family unit. So they're very expensive. They want to see alternative methods.
And what are the alternatives? Because I mean, he made the comparison with the Japanese internment, but that's quite different. I mean, many will argue that was an issue of rounding up people who are already in states. When we're talking about somebody or people who are crossing a border into the states, what do you do with? So what are the alternatives?
Well, they want to start with legal representation. They say a lot of these immigrants, undocumented immigrants, family units, they don't realize that they have the opportunity for legal representation. He wants them to see them given bonds, maybe reunited with their family groups. The problem with that, though, is, Fred, that when they are released to their family group, statistically, a lot of them don't show up to their court dates. He's saying, though, that if they have legal representation, that's an opportunity for them to go through the system. Also, he says that there are church groups, other volunteer organizations who are willing to house them, that they don't have to be.
We're talking about thousands of people.
We're talking about about 90,000 people at just this year that crossed the border. So this is an influx, a surge that they say the federal government wasn't prepared for. But we want to be clear here, this is something that's gone on for at least 2 years. It came up very, was in this news cycle this year, but this has gone on for a while.
And what's the response as to whether that's realistic?
Well, DHS says that they're doing all they can, and I asked them specifically to comment about these concerns, and they didn't release a specific statement to those concerns or those allegations, but they pointed to Jay Johnson's comments that he made during the opening of this week. I want to read part of that. It said, "The facility promotes and highlights the border security aspects of the executive actions by President Obama." It says, "We will continue to work with the governments of Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras to address with them the conditions in those 3 countries that are the push factors for illegal migration from there to here and to repatriate those of their citizens who came here illegally."